Hi, sweethearts. This is Beth, and I am yet again supposed to be on Sunday, and as you can see, I am not. So it's Wednesday. I was sick again this past weekend. It seems like the last video I posted, I was sick over the weekend, and then ended up posting a video on Wednesday, and somehow I managed to do it again. So, blah. That's what I get for working with little kids. So this week's topic is about bullying. Some of the questions were, have you experienced any bullying together? Has your man experienced any bullying? Have you taken have you had any problems from your old lesbian community? Have you had problems with other communities? Has there been bullying that has caught you by surprise? When you hear the term not trans enough, you blank. How do you cope? How do you respond? Where do you find strength? So there's a lot to cover here. So I think I'm going to start with experiences that we've had. What kind of bullying experiences we've had as a couple. What kind of experiences Judah has had, and how I feel about the not trans enough comment, as that seems to be a delightful subject for conversation. So first of all, we haven't had any severe bullying between the two of us, but we have had a couple of occasions now where we've been out in public and specifically cisgendered guys have seen us as a couple and have basically either tried to figure out what gender Judah is or just kind of like not known what gender he is, and so they'll like walk by, or we were in Chipotle one time and some guy started making like rude gestures at me, and then Judah was standing next to me, and so I like grabbed his hand, and the guy started like pointing at Judah and then tapped on Judah's shoulder to get him to turn around to try and see basically if he was a guy or not. And then they were like, oh, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it was her. And then they kept like laughing, and the guy kept making like faces at me, and that was really, it wasn't a big deal. It was just more agitating. It was really upsetting at the time, but I got, not so much for Judah, but for me, because I just thought the guy was being a jerk, and like stuff like that kind of happens where people don't know what gender Judah is, and so they see the two of us together, and they want to figure out if he's a guy or not, which is just really rude. And then the other things, there's been a couple of things that have happened with Judah. Our most infamous story was that we were out at a bar one night, and Judah was presenting as male, and a transgender female in the parking lot addressed him, and basically she came up to him and he smiled at her, and he was being really polite and, you know, just having a smoke, whatever. And this trans woman, she turned to him and she's like, well, you can't write your name in the snow, can you? And Judah was like, what? Like, first of all, that's like your first thing that you have to say to me, and second of all, what are you talking about? And she's all like, you can't write your name in the snow, can you? Because you don't have a penis. And it was just like one of those moments where you're a transgendered female and you're hating on a transgendered male. Like, it just, what? WTF. So, that was like one of those kind of from the topic questions, like unexpected. Because we were at first of all, we were at a gay bar, and it was a transgendered woman. And apparently there's the download of Swamp People complete. Judah's from Florida, so we totally watch Swamp People. Because it brings him back to his Floridian roots. Was going to be mad at me for that later. But those are just like, you know, minor things. We haven't had anything severe like, you know, physical attacks or like death threats or anything. I think we actually had more threats as a lesbian couple than we did as a presenting straight couple. So, which I think is really interesting because we live in a metropolitan area that is extremely high percentage of queer people and a very high percentage of very bold, very outspoken transgendered people. And we actually have our own transgender clinic here, which serves a huge amount of people and also serves the general public. So trans awareness is really big here. I think the hard part that I had with coming out and maybe like bullying type of thing was that there was quite a few people in my life that referred to Judah being transgendered as a mental disorder, which really bothered me. I'm really not cool when people call it like a disorder, because being trans is not a disorder. Or like calling it a mental health problem, that also really bothered me. Let's see here. And I did take some crap from the lesbian community. That was also kind of a frustrating thing, was that people were just like, so you want to look like you're a straight couple now? Like, what's that all about? And that kind of took me for a loop, because, you know, we've been really big supporters of like the equality movement, the human rights campaign, all of those things we're huge supporters of. And one of the top things on their agenda is legalizing gay marriage. And so if my agenda was to just look like a straight person, why would I still associate with that community, and why would I still, you know, support those things? And so it was a little bit disrespectful, I felt, to just assume that the only reason that I wanted to be the transgendered person was because I wanted to look straight. Especially since I am far from straight. I am super queer. And I don't like being identified as just like a femme or any of those things, because I am an incredibly masculine female. And while my lovely appearance does not show that, there are a lot of things about myself that are identified with masculinity. And so for me, I identify as queer. Occasionally I'll identify as pansexual. But I felt like it was really offensive for those who are in the lesbian community or those who are in the gay community to bash on me for my relationship, which is a non-traditional relationship just like theirs. And when they're fighting to be accepted because they're different, and the community that's most, you know, that's most outspoken about it is then in turn suppressing another community within itself, and I find that to just be really gross. And then the final thing, the not trans enough. I have such a big problem with people classifying what is and what isn't trans. That to me is repulsive. That's like saying, what's human enough? What's, you know, gay enough? What's lesbian enough? You know, it's like people who get upset about, you know, femme lesbians because they're too much like straight girls, or, you know, people who get mad at like really masculine gay guys because they look too much like straight guys. And who cares what you look or don't look like, or what your personality or what your traits, you know, express? It doesn't matter, you know, how feminine or how masculine or how trans you are, because that's your identity and you have a right to it. And that for me is just like I get really kind of a rise out of it. Like you can get a rise out of me really quick by saying that somebody is not trans enough, because I think that that's incredibly demeaning to their identity, and that you have no right to judge another person about their own identity, whether it be their gender identity, their sexual identity, That's like saying that a person is, of a religious belief and they're not enough of that religious belief. That's entirely a personal thing, and that's something that, is between you, and it doesn't matter what other people think. And in a relationship, especially as a partner of a trans person, I find it deeply offensive to me as well, because you're essentially demeaning my partner and you're demeaning our relationship by saying that, he's not trans enough. I think some positive things is that there is strength in numbers. There's support all around. And despite the fact that bullying does happen a lot, even unfortunately on trans websites, on support websites, there's a lot of bullying that just happens in general. And I truly believe that that's because we're a very hurt group of people, and we're a very misunderstood and belittled group of people, so we're really defensive. So a lot of trans guys will put down other trans guys, or trans guys will attack, the partners of other trans guys, or trans partners will attack each other. It's just kind of like a bunch of really sensitive, really hurt people all being put in the same room and then expected to get along. And so there is a lot of bullying that happens intentionally because it makes people feel better about themselves, or unintentionally just because we're all very sensitive. We have a lot of hot buttons. We get our feelings hurt really easily. And so I think that that's something to also take into consideration, is how you sound. If you're a part of an online community, if you're a part of a support group, if you're a part of Sofa Tea, or if you are a trans person and you're watching this and you're a part of a trans group, take into consideration your tone, your inflections, the word choice you have, and be respectful of other people within the trans and the trans partner community, and realize that all of us have a right and we're entitled to our own beliefs and being as trans or as not trans as they want to be, and as a partner to be whatever identity we would like to be. Because I also don't really like when people put down that I can't be, I can't identify as a lesbian if I'm with a trans guy, or I can't be queer if I'm with a trans guy. So those kind of things too need to be taken into consideration, that we have just as much right to identify as the next person, and that a little bit of respect goes a long, long way. And so that's all I've got for you guys this week, and I've talked way over time. And even though I talked really fast, I still could say a lot more. So wherever you all are in the world, know you're loved, know you're supported. If you are being bullied, I would take refuge in support places. There's the FTM Sweethearts group on Facebook, as well as on YouTube. There's also a trans couples group on Facebook, and there are many, many, many other groups on Facebook that you can join for support. So be supported, be loved, and wherever you are in the world, take heart. You're not alone. And I will see you guys all next week. Bye.